I never imagined that saving my family business would lead to the greatest betrayal of my life. For 12 months, I poured my heart and soul into creating a revolutionary travel software that pulled our company back from the brink of bankruptcy to $400 million in profit. Every line of code represented countless sleepless nights and sacrifices. I thought my family would be proud, grateful even. Instead, at my sister Amanda's birthday party, my father handed her complete ownership of my creation while I watched in disbelief. Before I tell you what happened when they arrived at work the next morning, where are you watching from today? Hit that like button if you have ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, and subscribe to join our community of survivors. Turn their pain into power. My journey begins 3 years after graduating with my computer science degree from MIT. I had always been passionate about the intersection of technology and travel, spending my college years developing various apps and platforms that never quite took off. Meanwhile, our family's travel agency, Horizon Travel, had been a respected name in the industry for 3 generations. My grandfather started it with nothing but a small office and big dreams, building it into a regional powerhouse that my father later expanded nationwide. But the digital revolution hit us hard. While competitors embraced online bookings and mobile apps, my father James stubbornly clung to the traditional model of in-person consultations and paper brochures. By the time I returned home after college, Horizon Travel was hemorrhaging clients and drowning in $5 million of debt. Our bookings had plummeted by 87% over 5 years, and bankruptcy seemed inevitable. "We just need to wait this internet fad out," my father would say during tense family meetings. People will always prefer the personal touch. My sister Amanda, with her business degree, and our father's unwavering approval, nodded in agreement. She managed our finances and marketing, though both were in shambles. When I proposed developing proprietary software to modernize our operations, they both dismissed me outright. "Stick to fixing our computers when they freeze up," Amanda said, with a condescending smile. "Leave the business decisions to us." Despite their skepticism, I saw a clear opportunity. Travel agencies were struggling because they couldn't compete with the convenience of online booking platforms, yet those platforms lacked personalization and expert knowledge. I envisioned an AI-driven system that could combine the efficiency of technology with the personalized recommendations of an experienced travel agent. For 6 months, I developed a prototype in my small apartment, surviving on instant noodles and coffee, while investing my entire savings of $24,000 into the project. I skipped social events, declined job offers from major tech companies, and worked 16-hour days. The system I created used machine learning to analyze travel preferences, predict destinations customers would love, and assemble personalized itineraries in seconds. When the prototype was finally ready, I arranged a demonstration for my family. The conference room fell silent as I walked them through the system. It could process thousands of travel options instantly, offering customers hyper-personalized recommendations based on their preferences, budget, and travel history. "This is impressive, Robert," my father admitted reluctantly, "but implementing something like this would cost a fortune we do not have." "I have already built it," I replied. "All we need to do is integrate it with our existing systems." After hours of debate, my father finally agreed to let me implement the software, but with one condition: I would work without a salary, receiving only a vague promise of equity if the project succeeded. Amanda smirked when I accepted these terms, clearly believing I was wasting my time. With no income, I had to move back into my childhood bedroom. Late at night, I would overhear my father and sister discussing the business, their voices carrying through the heating vent. "How long are we going to humor Robert with this tech project?" Amanda would ask. "Just enough time for him to realize it will not work," my father replied. "Then maybe he will get a real job and stop with these fantasies." Those words stung, but they also fueled my determination. I threw myself even deeper into the project, driven by a desire to prove them wrong and save our family legacy. When doubt crept in during those long solitary nights of coding, I reminded myself that I believed in my vision even if no one else did. My daily routine became a blur of coding and troubleshooting. I would wake at 5 in the morning and work until midnight, surviving on ramen noodles and energy drinks. Dark circles formed under my eyes, and my weight dropped by 20 pounds. But with each passing day, the system grew more sophisticated. The early implementation was not without challenges. Our servers crashed during the initial launch, causing us to lose several bookings. Payment processing integrations failed repeatedly, and data migration from our legacy systems proved more complex than anticipated. Amanda seized on these setbacks, suggesting we abandon the project before wasting more time. But I persisted, spending 3 consecutive nights fixing the server architecture, and rebuilding our payment gateway from scratch. By the fourth week, the system was stable enough to handle a growing number of transactions. The first breakthrough came when I approached Skywings, a smaller airline struggling against industry giants. I convinced them to give us exclusive rates in exchange for featuring their flights prominently for appropriate routes. They agreed, allowing us to offer prices 15% below our competitors. Soon, other suppliers followed, eager for the guaranteed business our growing platform provided. With no marketing budget, I created viral social media campaigns showcasing stunning destinations with the tagline, "Discover your perfect journey." Each post linked back to our platform, where users could find personalized routes to these exact locations. The campaign cost nothing but my time and creativity, yet engagement skyrocketed. At the end of our first month with the new system, I presented the financial report to my father and sister. After years of losses, we had generated $46,000 in revenue. Their skepticism began to crack, though neither would admit I had been right. The second month brought an even more dramatic shift. My algorithm had been collecting data on customer preferences and travel patterns, refining its recommendations with each booking. Satisfaction rates climbed to 97%, as travelers marveled at how perfectly our system anticipated their desires. Revenue jumped to $173,000. By month, 3 major travel platforms had noticed our success. Expedia representatives called curious about our technology. TripAdvisor featured us in their Innovators to Watch section. A venture capital firm offered to invest $2 million for a 30% stake, which my father declined, without even consulting me. As our reputation grew, so did the challenges of scaling. I hired a small team of developers, personally training each one to understand our system architecture. Together, we expanded our capabilities, adding features like real-time climate data integration and local cultural event recommendations that made our itineraries uniquely comprehensive. 6 months, and a major competitor offered $10 million to purchase our technology outright. I argued against selling, believing we were just beginning to realize the platform's potential. For once, my father agreed with me, though his reasons seemed more tied to pride than understanding our technological advantage. At the 8-month mark, our proprietary algorithm had become the gold standard in travel recommendation engines. Industry analysts tried to reverse engineer our success, but the complex machine learning models I had developed remained our secret weapon. Every customer interaction made the system smarter, widening the gap between our recommendations and those of our competitors. 1 year after implementation, we had achieved what seemed impossible: $400 million in profit. Our bankruptcy fears were replaced by expansion plans. The company moved from our shabby old office to a gleaming building downtown. My father bought a new mansion in the most exclusive neighborhood and a collection of vintage cars. Amanda upgraded to designer clothes and exotic vacations. I remained focused on the technology, continuing to refine and expand our capabilities while living in a modest apartment near the office. My reward was seeing my family secure, and the business my grandfather founded thriving again. I felt proud watching our employees celebrate job security and advancement opportunities that had seemed impossible just 12 months earlier. Industry recognition came in the form of the prestigious Travel Innovation of the Year award, which I accepted at a gala in New York City. The photos from that night show me beaming with genuine happiness, unaware of what was coming. During interviews, I noticed my father increasingly positioning himself as the visionary who had directed the technology transformation with me as merely the executor of his grand plan. I brushed this revisionist history aside, focusing instead on our continued growth. The date of Amanda's 30th birthday will forever be etched in my memory. My father spared no expense, transforming their new mansion into a showcase of opulence with ice sculptures, Michelin-starred catering, and a string quartet playing in the grand foyer. The guest list included family friends, business partners, and industry leaders my father was eager to impress. I arrived an hour late, having stayed at the office to fix a critical system issue that threatened to disrupt bookings across 3 time zones. By the time I walked in, the celebration was in full swing. Amanda, resplendent in a designer gown, was holding court in the center of the room while my father beamed proudly beside her. "There he is," my father announced as I entered. "Our resident genius finally decided to join us." The comment drew laughter, but I detected the subtle mockery beneath his words. Still, I smiled and made my way through the crowd, accepting congratulations for the company's remarkable turnaround. As the evening progressed, my father clinked his champagne glass for attention. The room quieted as he began a speech praising Amanda's business acumen and dedication to the family legacy. I stood in the corner nursing a single glass of whiskey, genuinely happy for my sister despite our differences. And now my father announced, his voice swelling with emotion, "I have a special gift for my daughter on this milestone birthday." From his jacket pocket he produced an envelope and handed it to Amanda with theatrical flourish. She opened it, her eyes widening as she scanned the contents. "These are ownership papers," she gasped, looking up at our father in disbelief. "That is right, sweetheart. As of today, you are the sole owner of Horizon Travel, including all assets, properties, and technologies." The room fell silent. I stood frozen, certain I had misheard. Guests exchanged uncomfortable glances as the implications became clear. My sister now owned the company, including the software system. I had created the system that had saved us from bankruptcy. Amanda recovered quickly, squealing with delight, and embracing our father while the crowd broke into uncertain applause. A few guests glanced in my direction, some with pity, others with barely concealed satisfaction at my public humiliation. I waited until the speech ended before quietly approaching my father. "Could we speak privately for a moment?" I asked, maintaining composure, despite the thundering in my chest. He followed me to his study, closing the heavy oak door behind us. The room lined with leather-bound books he never read had always been his sanctuary. "What is the meaning of this?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. "We had an agreement about equity when the system succeeded." "It more than succeeded, it transformed the entire company." My father leaned against his mahogany desk, crossing his arms. "Oh, come now, Robert. You cannot possibly believe you deserve ownership. You built a computer program. Anyone could have done that." Anyone. The business was weeks away from bankruptcy before my system. Your system. He laughed, the sound sharp and dismissive. "The ideas were always mine. You were just the tech guy who implemented them. Amanda has the business vision to take the company forward. She understands the market in ways you never will." I stared at him, searching for any recognition of my contribution, any acknowledgement of the countless hours and personal sacrifices. I found none. "So I get nothing?" I asked. After everything I did, my father reached into his wallet and pulled out a $100 bill, pressing it into my palm with a patronizing smile. "This is your actual value," he said. "Consider yourself paid in full." The bill felt like it was burning my skin. Memories flashed through my mind, sleeping at the office for days, to fix critical bugs, skipping meals to afford better servers, declining a $200,000 job offer to save our family business. I looked down at the money, then back at my father's smug expression. Outside, I could hear the party continuing, Amanda's laughter floating down the hallway. "I see," I said finally, tucking the bill into my pocket. "Congratulations on the successful transition." I left the study, walking through the crowd of partygoers without making eye contact. No one noticed as I slipped out the front door into the cool night air. Amanda was too busy posing for photos with her new ownership papers to acknowledge my departure. The drive to my apartment was a blur. Streetlights streaked past my window as I gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white with tension. For the first time in over a year, I had no algorithm to optimize, no code to debug, no crisis to solve. Just the echoing words of my father and the weight of a $100 bill in my pocket. That night became a crucible that transformed my pain into clarity. Initially, anger consumed me. Anger at my father's betrayal, at Amanda's entitlement, at my own naivety for believing family loyalty would trump greed. I paced my apartment until dawn, cycling through rage, disbelief, and finally strategic calculation. As morning light filtered through my blinds, I opened my laptop and began methodically reviewing the software architecture I had created. The company might legally belong to my sister, but the intellectual architecture of our success had nuances my family had never bothered to understand. While assembling the ownership documents, my father had overlooked a critical detail: I had never formally transferred the intellectual property rights to my software. The deployment was licensed to Horizon Travel, but the core algorithms and proprietary code remained mine. This oversight was the leverage I needed. I spent the early morning hours creating secure backups of the entire system and implementing a protocol that only I could access. It was not sabotage. I would never destroy what I had built, but rather a contingency plan that would demonstrate my true value. At 7:30 in the morning, I arrived at the office earlier than usual. The few employees already at their desks nodded respectfully as I passed. In my department, I gathered my small team for a brief meeting. "There may be some system fluctuations today," I told them calmly. "Whatever happens, please direct all inquiries to senior management." They looked confused but nodded in agreement. My team had always trusted my technical judgment without question. At 9:15, my father and Amanda arrived together, stepping off the elevator with matching expressions of self-satisfaction. Amanda had already changed her email signature to Amanda Collins, CEO and owner. They walked past my desk, without acknowledgement, heading straight for the corner office that now displayed her name on the door. At precisely 9:30, the first call came in. One of our largest corporate clients could not access their bookings. Minutes later, another call reported that the recommendation engine was producing random, unsuitable results. By 10 o'clock, the customer service line was flooded with complaints. From my desk, I monitored the escalating situation through our internal systems. The software was operating exactly as I had programmed it, to showing just enough irregularities to cause concern, without completely collapsing. A subtle demonstration of who really held the keys to the kingdom. Amanda emerged from her office, face flushed with panic. "What is happening to the system?" she demanded, addressing the room at large. My team members glanced at me, then back at her. "We were instructed to direct all inquiries to senior management," one of them replied. By 11 o'clock, our stock value had dropped 12%, as news of the technical difficulties spread through industry channels. Clients were threatening to move their business elsewhere, and our exclusive supplier partners were calling with concerns. My father stormed out of the conference room where emergency calls had been taking place. His face was ashen as he approached my desk. "Fix it," he ordered. "Fix it now." I looked up calmly. "Fix what exactly? You know damn well what. The system is falling apart and you are the only one who can repair it." "The system I built," I asked. "The one that apparently has no value beyond $100. His expression shifted from anger to dawning comprehension. "This is not the time for games, Robert. We are losing millions by the minute." "Actually, Amanda is losing millions," I corrected, "since she is the sole owner now." I reached into my drawer and retrieved a folder containing documentation I had prepared overnight. "You might want to review these papers. They outline my intellectual property rights to the software architecture powering Horizon Travel." My father snatched the folder, flipping through the pages with growing alarm. Amanda joined us, her earlier confidence replaced by barely contained panic. "What does this mean?" she demanded. "It means you own a travel agency," I explained, "but I own the technology that makes it valuable. Without a proper licensing agreement with me, the system will continue to experience irregularities." "This is blackmail," my father hissed. "This is business," I countered, "something you taught me through your example last night." I laid out two options. They could buy the intellectual property rights from me for 51% of the company's value, or I would license the technology to them for $1 in exchange for 51% ownership, stake, and the position of CEO. "That is highway robbery," Amanda protested. "That is the market determining my actual value," I replied, echoing my father's words from the previous night. As the system issues continued and financial losses mounted, their resistance crumbled. By afternoon, our lawyers were drafting new ownership agreements. My father signed them with a rigid jaw and cold eyes, while Amanda struggled to maintain her composure. When the papers were signed, I entered a command on my laptop. Within minutes, the system stabilized, and normal operations resumed. The immediate restoration confirmed what they now knew I had been in control all along. The weeks following our restructuring brought profound changes to both the business and our family dynamics. As the new majority owner and CEO, my first executive decision was to implement a more collaborative leadership model that valued expertise over bloodlines. My father initially approached our management meetings with cold formality, his pride still wounded from the public reversal of fortune. Amanda fluctuated between resentment and reluctant acknowledgement of my technical expertise. Neither was ready to address the betrayal directly, but the power shift was unmistakable. "The quarterly projections look promising," Amanda noted during our first board meeting, her voice carefully neutral. "Your system updates have increased conversion rates by 22%. Our system," I corrected gently. "And yes, the predictive vacation packaging is performing beyond expectations." It was a small moment, but significant, my sister, acknowledging the value of my contribution without prompting. The road to repairing our relationship would be long, but this represented the first tentative step. Under my leadership, we expanded beyond traditional travel bookings into experience curation, using my algorithms to match travelers with unique local adventures they would never find on mainstream platforms. This vertical integration increased our profit margins while creating a service impossible for competitors to duplicate. I hired based on talent, rather than connections, bringing in diverse perspectives that challenged our thinking and pushed innovation forward. Many of these new team members came from backgrounds similar to mine, brilliant technologists whose ideas had been dismissed by established players too comfortable with the status quo. 6 months into my tenure, as CEO, industry analysts were calling Horizon Travel the most forward-thinking company in the sector, our valuation continued to climb, benefiting all shareholders, including my father and sister. The most surprising development came during a late night at the office when my father appeared at my door. It was the first time he had sought me out since the ownership change. "I have been thinking about how things unfolded," he began awkwardly. "Looking back, I can see now that I was unfair in my assessment of your contribution." Coming from him, this qualified as a profound apology. I invited him to sit, and we spoke candidly about the company's future for the first time in years. He offered insights about customer relationships that complemented my technological vision. It was not forgiveness exactly, but perhaps the beginning of a new understanding. Amanda took longer to come around, but her business education eventually allowed her to recognize the elegance of the system I had built. She began asking thoughtful questions about how certain features worked, showing genuine interest rather than competitive jealousy. "I never really understood what you were creating," she admitted during a strategy session. "It seemed like you were just typing random code, not building something revolutionary." "Maybe I should have explained it better," I offered, extending an olive branch of my own. My personal healing journey progressed in parallel with these professional developments. The betrayal had cut deep, forcing me to confront painful truths about family dynamics I had long ignored. Through this process, I discovered that my true value was never dependent on their approval. It was inherent in my abilities, vision, and determination. This realization liberated me from the desperate need for validation that had driven many of my earlier decisions. I found myself leading with greater confidence, making choices based on principle rather than the desire to please others. The most fulfilling project to emerge from this transformation was the tech incubator I established within Horizon Travel. Named Overlooked, it provided funding and mentorship to innovators whose brilliance had been dismissed by short-sighted authorities. The program became my way of turning personal pain into opportunity for others facing similar obstacles. 1 year after the ownership restructuring, our company's culture transformation had become a Harvard Business School case study. Revenue exceeded $700 million, with projections approaching $1 billion for the following year. More importantly, we had built an organization where contribution mattered more than hierarchy and innovation flourished without fear of betrayal. My relationship with my father and sister would never return to blind trust, but it had evolved into something potentially more valuable, a partnership based on mutual respect and clearly defined boundaries. The painful lessons of that birthday party had ultimately created something stronger than what existed before. As I reflect on this journey, I recognize that the $100 bill, which I keep framed on my office wall, was not the insult my father intended, but rather the catalyst that forced me to claim my true worth. Sometimes, betrayal becomes the unexpected doorway to our most authentic power. Has someone ever underestimated your value? Have you turned a painful betrayal into your greatest motivation? Leave a comment below sharing your story. Our community grows stronger when we learn from each other's experiences. Do not forget to like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe to hear more stories of triumph over adversity, and share with someone who might need this message today. Remember, your value is not determined by those who fail to see your worth, but by the courage you show when standing in your truth. Thank you for joining me today, and until next time, keep coding your own destiny.